Father, with your permission, may I begin? Good afternoon, everyone. Let us now begin this session with a silent prayer. Thank you. I would like to begin with a quote by George Lucas. The sciences are the how, and the humanities are the why. On that premise, I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed speaker, guests, and all the participants to the sixth day of the Faculty Development Program on Navigating the Future, Innovations and Strategies in Teaching and Research, hosted by the Department of English, Christu Jayanti College, Autonomous. To shed light on today's session, we have an eminent personality amidst us, Professor Saji Gopinath. We welcome you, sir. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed head of the department, Father Joshi Matthew, whose exemplary leadership serves as a guiding light, continually illuminating our path. We are honored to have you with us, Father. I welcome the Dean of the Humanities, Dr. Gopakumar A.V., for his guidance in conducting this FTP. Welcome, sir. I would also like to welcome the two program coordinators of the Department of English, Mr. Jerin Jose and Dr. Loyola Thomas, UG and PG coordinators, respectively, for their constant support to enrich the faculty through various programs. We welcome Sir and Ma'am. Now, I extend a hearty welcome to all the participants who have joined this faculty development program from around the nations with a purpose and zeal to learn. We welcome you all. Professor Gopinath is the inaugural Vice Chancellor of the newly established Kerala University of Digital Sciences, Innovation and Technology. His extensive experience includes serving as the Director of the Indian Institute of Information Technology and Management, Kerala, and over 17 years of the Indian Institute of Management as Dean Academics, Dean Development, and Professor in the Operations Management. A distinguished alumnus, Professor Saji Gopinath, earned the gold medal in mechanical engineering from Kerala University in 1988. He further advanced his education with a PG and PhD in management studies from the Indian Institute of Science. His professional journey began with L&T and ONGC before he transitioned into academia. Since joining IIM Kozhikode in 1997, Professor Gopinath has been instrumental in elevating the institution to one of the top 5 management schools in India. His leadership at the Kerala Startup Mission garnered national recognition, consistently ranking it as a top performer ecosystem by the Government of India and achieving the title of world's #1 public business accelerator at the World Incubation Summit in 2019. He also served as a director at TAPME Manipal and was the founding dean of Bennett University, established by the Times of India. He also shares his expertise as a visiting faculty member at several universities across Europe and Australasia. His exceptional contribution have been acknowledged through numerous prestigious awards, including the British Council Knowledge Economy Fellowship, TIE Ecosystem Enabler Award, ISTD Transformation Guru Award, Educational Leadership Award, KMA Technology Leadership Award, CMA Management Leadership Award, and the Future Kerala Best CEO Award. Professor Saji Gopinath's influence in education and innovation continues to inspire future generations. Let's all extend a warm welcome as he joins us today. Professor Gopinath will now begin his presentation on the topic Humanities in the AI First World. I request Professor Gopinath to take over the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Honorable Head of the Department, Father Joshi Matthew, Dean Dr. Gopakumar, Coordinator of the program, Professor Mary, and other distinguished faculty members, participants of this international FTP on uh, the future technologies. Uh, it's a great privilege to be today with you to address on a very interesting topic on the humanities in this completely changing world. I'm sure that we see a large number of interesting sessions. You have already seen that in the past. I understand is the sixth session, and different levels of change happening in the education and research space in the field of humanities, in the field of technology has actually been discussed in the previous sessions. So in this session, I thought I will share some thoughts on how the AI first world, and we will discuss what is this AI first world all about, how that is shaping up, and how the disciplines of humanities is actually offering new research and educational problems. So as we know that this particular FTP is actually being titled as Navigating the Future, the innovations and strategies in the teaching and research, I thought that the best way to invent the future is to predict it. So basically, this next maybe 45 minutes, what I would like to take all of you is how the future is actually getting shaped, or how we can together shape the future, especially to make it as more sustainable and more inclusive, which is needed, especially in the onslaught of technology, which is happening in a very, very fast pace. So in this next half an hour, I thought I will present for around half an hour to 40 minutes, and I will request your questions and or discussions after that. But if you have any questions or any comments on this, you are most welcome to write it in the chat box, and so that maybe I could take it as I proceed, or maybe at the end of this short presentation. So primarily, I will like to speak on three aspects. One, we need to ask this question is, what is this AI first world? Are we really in an AI world? Or are we still in what the other side of it is, what we call as an industrialized world? And so basically, it's also important to ask this question that there is an evolution. Is it just an evolution which happened, or there is a revolution which is happening, or there is a fundamental transition which is happening? The evolution is basically an incremental change, and revolution is primarily some of the new aspects which is coming in. And when you think about transformation, you are going to completely retransform what you are doing today. Many things which you do today will have to be completely redefined. So in this new world, are we happening? Is it revolution? Is it revolution? Is it transformation? Or is it just a fad? Because when I did my engineering several years back in mid 80s, the AI was a topic. The artificial intelligence was a course which I have done during my undergrad days as well as my postgraduate day at Indian Institute of Science at Bangalore. But that time, which we speak as AI, is something which we call as the expert systems. Today, we speak too much about AI in all the areas. Especially, we speak about the positive and negative effect of artificial intelligence, specifically after the Gen AI or generative AI has come into picture. So we need to ask this question that whether this is actually going to make a big inroads, or whether it is going to be sort of another technological improvement as such. And that is a very important, as I understand that most of you are from the humanities disciplines. It's very important because unless this reflects back on to the fundamental aspects of the language, culture, philosophy, you will not have a very sustainable and inclusive society process. So we need to think about that, whether it is a fundamental shift or not. So that's the second and the third themes which I wanted to discuss on that, where we look at what we today call as digital humanities, which is primarily where the technology tools are getting applied into humanities domains. So that actually brings in very interesting themes for teaching and research. So let me put some framework onto that as I proceed. And but more importantly, which is not discussed that much, it's discussed more at conferences and seminars, but not not necessarily have gone into deeper research and deeper introspection is what is that uh, impact of digital world, what is the impact of digital world in the humanities domain per se? Is our conventional ways of looking at many aspects on the humanities domains actually need to be altered? Whether there should be a transformation or not. So that's why I said it's more of an unfinished agenda, but unfinished agenda for an academic is really good because that gives us a rich set of problems for us to ponder and come out with interesting results per se. So these are the three things which I thought I will discuss in the next hour or 40 minutes. And let me also make a clarification here that I don't want to make it as a very, very tech talk. It's more of a how technology is affecting us, but not necessarily going to the detail of the mechanics of the technology. If somebody want to know more about that, we will discuss that. Second is when I speak about AI, I am actually referring AI as a metaphor for all the digital technologies. When I say digital technologies, any intelligent autonomous technologies, including the all newer technologies like blockchain, data analytics, robotics, all of them is being put as artificial intelligence technologies. So it's not necessarily only AI per se, but it's also the related new what we broadly or loosely called as industry 4.0 technologies or fourth industrial revolution technologies sort of a thing. So that's primarily which we will be looking at. So with this sort of a overview, let me ask this question: which what is this AI first world, and it's really the world has become AI driven as such. Uh, Several studies, mainly by consulting companies and trade literature, the academic literature is yet to give the precise data on that, but most of the studies across the world and primarily in developed world and shows that more than 75% of the world actually uses AI. In fact, all of us sitting here are using AI in some way or another if you are using a smartphone. In our own, in this particular platform which we use, we have an AI companion with us, which can help us to transcribe and transcript and all. And many of the products and services which we use in our home, we have some level of an AI in the part of it. So the more importantly, it is actually growing in a very, very fast manner. Being a, as I said, in 80s and 90s, and we used to call it as 90s is the winter of AI, where not much of development has not happened or was not visible. Today, you see everything, any seminar, any conference, any research, we always speak about artificial intelligence as an important element. One of the reasons is that AI has actually becoming more of a generic technology. Now, that technology has got two or three types. If a technology is used for a specific purpose, then the adoption of that is very limited. But when a technology does multiple things, when it becomes more generic, it becomes very easily adoptable. We know that about computers. If when computers were doing only computing, and that is what it was doing for several years, the amount of people who are using computers are actually very limited. But when computers started doing many things other than computing, it started helping us to communicate with each other, which it helps us to show entertainment, it helps us to store many of those things which has happened. Suddenly, you can see it become a very commonly used product as such. The same is happening with AI. But AI, even today, is what we in technology jargons we call as a narrow AI because it still have very limited level of intelligence and not the generic AI, which has got a superior level of intelligence, which time permits, we will discuss something on that. But the important thing is that the AI and AI products and AI related productivity which is happening in the world is actually going in an exponential factor, almost with around 30 to 40% growth per annum person. And it is predicted that 15% of the global economy is going to be contributed by AI. Close to around 100 million jobs are going to be created by AI in the next 3 to 4 years of time. And digital economies are totally, if you take one third of the global economy is going to be the digital in the next 2 3 years of time, which primarily means that it's going to be a very very significant element in our daily lives as such. And the impact of this is, as I said earlier, it is variety, it's impacting a variety of sectors. In fact, a very interesting paper on how AI is being used in biomedical research and how the authors have actually declared that AI in their articles, which came in the European Radiology Experimental, shows how the exponential use of AI is happening in our literature, in our research pursuit, in a very different domain, biomedical domain, which is a very different domain. Even in that domain, you can see the type of things happening. You can actually do this in the other areas also. So, in other words, we cannot say that it is only a fad or it's only a transition. It is actually come into the deeper inroads per se. But more important to that is that this is creating some lasting impact, and that's basically where I think, as humanities practitioners and researchers, we should be a little bit more concerned, or we should be looking at. In other words, the AI technology is now not anymore in the peripheral. It has actually come to the core. Once it has come to the core, it's actually going to make a lot of ramification in the society as a total. And specifically, this leads to high level of efficiency and effectiveness. I'm sure that almost everyone sitting here must have used or continuously being using maybe ChatGPT or some variant of ChatGPT, uh, where we have seen how our work is actually getting improved, efficient, using the ChatGPT tool per se. So there is an efficiency increase which happening, but there is also a need or a challenge of effectiveness in our core work which is happening in variety of fields per se. And this also is an interesting thing, because the way people are adopting this is actually coming out in a very large manner, that the quantitative technology cycle, which economists are familiar with, if I modify that and look at how a technology introduced to become a mature, we can see that in as technologies are moving from conventional industrial technologies like steam engines or electricity to automobile to computers to AI, the time period in which it actually being adopted is actually shrinking drastically. That's, again, it is evident from us from a anecdotal point of view, from our own personal experience. It must have taken several years for us to acquire a computers, but it took very few time for us to acquire a mobile phone, or much lesser time to acquire a AI tool which has been introduced in the world, which primarily shows that there is a fast adoption of technology which is happening. And on the other side, these these changes of technology, which we generally call as industrial revolution. I'm not going to the detail, because you must have heard this in several talks earlier. That's why I'm not going to the detail. We generally say that the industrial 1.0, or the first industrial revolution, which actually moved the society from a conventional agriculture to an industrial world, and that has actually have got several other ramifications around that, in the sociological domain, the cultural domain, in the human welfare domain, and many of those things you people will be discussing in your classrooms. We see that there is an automation of physical labor from the factory farm is happened during that first industrial revolution. From that, we move to the second industrial revolution, which is happened during the last century with the invention of automobiles. We see there is a high level of assembly line models and mass customization models which happen. The human beings were treated more like machines. In management, we call it as the father of management, the Francis Taylor, who brought in the concept of productivity of labor, primarily looking at human beings as very similar to the machines per se. So the human element was missing in that context. It took several years after that, when the human resource movement which happened, or human where that thing has actually changed as such. Then the third layer, which has happened during the third thing, where we speak about mass customization and service automation, which is coming primarily because of the inventions of happened in the electronics and computer space. And now in the fourth industrial revolution, which is actually in the peak now, where the AI and related tools are actually being used extensively. We speak about automation of cognitive labor. Just like a physical labor is been transformed by machines during the First World War, where in a conventional agriculture field, where humans were working with their own human power or animal power, that has been transformed using machine power. Same way, the cognitive labor of people are actually getting transformed using the machine power. So this change actually lead to a paradigm shift. And I'll come back to that very soon. What is a paradigm shift we are speaking about? And that also leads to questions of relevance of human beings as such. So, also, as some of you maybe following this knows that there were a lot of debate about whether the AI will replace humans, whether there is going to be job losses and things like that. And today we speak about the next layer, which is we call as the Industry 5.0, which is not necessarily new industrial revolution, but an industrial revolution of 4.0, where human aspect and value-centric orientation is actually going to be looked at. We will speak about that at the end of this session in a little more detail. So we primarily speaking about how human being is going to become a very key element, if not at the center, but a very key element in this whole transformation process. So second thing is that, which is also important for us, is that there is a different way of sociological aspects which are happening. From a competitive model which was existing for us for several years or several years of history, we are actually moving more into a models of collaboration. So the sociological traits which happens around us are very different from the sociological traits which we we experience in the past. So some of those aspects, as how do we think about community based orientation to a global based orientation, some of the Indian ethos of global uh, wealth or global knowledge is actually becoming a practice across the world in this new world per se. I know that I've not that made that clear at this point of time. I'll come back to that, because that is the reason why the technology life cycle is shrinking very fast. The reason why technology life cycle is shrinking very fast is primarily not because the technology per se is actually being coming out in a very fast pace, but it's also because there is a different change in the, the sociological aspects around us which actually drive the technology acceleration. So there is a very interesting link between technology and humanities in a very reinforcing fashion happening in this world per se, which is a very important point to note, and I'm sure it's a very debatable point also. We will discuss that because it has got positive and negative impact as such. And then there is also a fast element of tools and adoption which is happening. So all these things, the question as humanities professionals, we need to ask is that how is it going to affect our core disciplines of humanities, whether it is linguistic studies, whether it is historical studies, whether it's cultural studies, whether it's anthropology, whether it is uh, uh, economics, how this is going to be applied, something which we need to look at it. Before getting into that, when we move this to an AI first world, this becomes relevant only if there is some very fundamental shift which is happening. So my argument, which I forward to you, and you can definitely have difference of views, and we need to discuss and debate on that, is that there is a fundamental shift which is happening. And that fundamental shift is the one which is going to shape the courses which we teach, the research which we are going to do, the way the new talent has to be developed in the humanities discipline. So the fundamental shift to be understood by looking at the transition of society across the time. Let's not go too back into history, but if you look at pre-modern, pre-industrialized and post-industrialized society, in the industrial society, especially when you come with the large level of automation, which came during the first and second industrial revolution, has actually brought in quite a bit of a change in philosophies. We actually started speaking about mass production philosophies. The easiest to understand that is that think about education in the pre-industrialized world and the education in the industrialized world, which is what we are all familiar with. In the pre-industrialized world, education was always confined to smaller groups. There were individual attention which was given. In India, we call it as gurukulas, where small groups are actually being trained by a guru who knows the learning path of each individual. But it has got a challenge of access. It has got a challenge of scalability. That's why the mass production actually brought in the large classrooms. And as teachers, most of us know that when we are actually going to a very large classroom of 30 or 40 or 60 or 70 or 100 students, many times we lost control of, or we lost track of each individual's learning path, and that gives a very vanilla flavored education per se. So that was primarily the one of the key elements of this mass production economy per se. And this has actually brought in a lot of industrial growth also. The societies, the hierarchical societies have actually got formed. You have seen that the lot of things get developed across bigger cities. The cities which was not there in the earlier, human beings started living together at specific points and lead to interesting models around that. This massifications and new factors of production which has come, where the land, labor, capital become the key drivers of the economy per se. And we generally call it as an economy creator model. And some of the philosophies like Marxian philosophy came out of that, because we know that in the factors of production being land, labor, capital, you see the people who actually add value may not be the people who get the maximum share of the returns. It may be the people who put the capital who may get a higher share of profit. And there are class differences which has happened, and there is a whole philosophical orientation happened out of that. I'll not, because of limitation of time, I'm not going to get into that. So this sort of a change which has happened when you moved from an agriculture field to an industrial world. Now, from an industrial world, when I'm moving back to what we call as a AI economy, from an oil economy, when we move to an AI economy, we see something very different happening. And that's why this is a fundamental shift per se. The shift is that we speak about decentralization today. From a centralized areas, large scale productions, large scale operations, everything is mass. We now speak about decentralization. Perhaps also because of the global warming and other negative effects of centralization, which we are familiar with. And we speak quite a bit of personalization. We speak today the world of personalized solutions, personalized medicine, personalized agriculture. Everything is actually coming to the smaller spaces. And suddenly we see that many things which we are currently using are not generally being developed by big people with large amount of money, but people with talent and small group of people. Very simple things like WhatsApp, for example, which I am sure all of us are using it. It does not come from a very large company. It comes from a group of small individuals coming together and coming out with a product. Many products today which we use are actually being generated by many things which is advancement of human life is actually not being done by group of very large number of people, but small group of people per se. And this dissolution of large organizations or dissolution of large itself is actually a very, very important change which is happening. So in essence, there is a massification which happened. From a massification, we move to a world of small, world of personalization, world of self, and the factors of production is getting changed. And from a collaborative model, from a competitive model, we move to a world of collaboration, sharing, and we call as a large access economy. The new world is quite a bit about access economy. I don't know how many of you have thought about how could ChatGPT could learn so much things. How could it actually give you so many answers when you ask? The answer is very simple. People who have that knowledge, they actually shared with others free of cost. The development has happened because multiple people have developed in an open platform, and because of that, it is easy for you to do it. So in other words, from a conventional organizational setting of developing products, where there is a hierarchical organization, there are some employees and employers, and they develop products. We today move to a world where volunteerism, sharing economy, and an access economy is actually happening. And this has got big challenges around us, because the locus of control is actually changing from large organizations to smaller organizations, the fading boundaries and increasing the trust between people. Remember, if you look at, we used to trust central institutions. Every time when individual trust happens, only when there is a central institution which is there. It could be a religious institution, it could be a governmental or a people-centric institution. So there should be an organizational institution which requires to trust each other. That's the reason why if I need money and you have a money, you never give that money to me. You will give it to a bank because you trust the bank, you don't trust me. So this was the past. From that, people actually start trusting each other. You look at today, if a kid has to go for a tour and want to book a hotel, he will never look at whether somebody has given a ranking or not. Instead, they will look at what others are speaking about it. Our own institutions, we can see that. Even if you may have very high NIRF ranking or whatever be, but many times we know that our students actually opt our college or our studies because their peers or others have actually rated that particular college high or low per se. So the trusting each other is actually becoming an important thing in this new world rather than trusting the centralized institutions. This is again a big change in the sociological change which is happening. And as I said, you are moving to a world where the competition is actually getting waning. And these are all elements of future which are actually happening or visible now. And we need deeper research to get into this in much more detail. So all these leads to a very important question that how should the humanities disciplines need to change to address these changes or issues which digital economy or AI economy is actually bringing in. I know that many of you may have a difference of opinion on what I mentioned. You may have a different thought. There are a lot of people who argue, including researchers who argue that it's only a passing phase. There is only a incremental change. There is no fundamental shifts. It's just a technological move. But there are others equally who subscribe to this thing which I mentioned. So we will definitely take that as question after maybe another 10-15 minutes when we discuss into the questions per se. So in other words, to me, this actually lead to two important elements for us. That this AI first world, from a visible points of view, like the growth of economy, the growth of product, the way the AI tools and techniques are being adopted by us, and the way it is being adopted across the sectors, the ubiquitousness, etc., actually prompt us to believe that the AI first world has actually come. Now, the AI first world, to me, and what I was trying to argue out, is that it is not just an extension of an industrial world. It's a counter of industrial world. For an industrial world which was speaking about large massification, the AI world is speaking about small. It's speaking about decentralized. It's speaking about self. It's speaking about creator economy. And this shift, we need to actually start looking at how this is affecting the humanities discipline person. So to me, there are two aspects to this, and I hope I will be able to cover both of them, but otherwise, if not, we will take it in the questions. First is AI per se for humanities disciplines and digital for humanities disciplines. And this is nothing new. It was there for at least the last 10-15 years. We were actually trying to do that, and we called it digital humanities, computational humanities, etc. I believe that yesterday you had a very interesting session. Day before yesterday, you had a very interesting session on computational humanities, where the professor must have explained about how the technology has been used in the humanities domain per se. But then we also need to look at humanities for the AI world. That is AI applied to the humanities discipline and humanities discipline applying to this AI world per se. And for the first one, we will actually look at how digital humanities, which is generally because digital humanities is generally used primarily to reflect how digital is applied into humanities, not the other way around. Even though it should have been the other way around, the humanities for the digital world, but it is generally being referred as digital being applied in the humanities. So the impact of digital technologies in humanities discipline, we all know that it is used in digitization, preservation, tools and visualization being used, the digital media and analysis. You used to do a lot of mining with that. And specifically tools like image processing, archiving, generative AI, all of them actually getting used. There are several areas of research which is happening. And one interesting paper, now some of the research papers I've given as footnotes. Some of the researchers who are here can actually go that into more detail and study. Just take three papers, three journals. That is Computation Humanities, Digital Humanities Quarterly, and Literary and Linguistic Computing. And Lumen and Burgard has, in a recent paper, has actually see how the discipline is actually, or digital humanities are being changed. As the diagram shows, from 1990s to 2020, when you move, we see that digital humanities is now spread across. The computers journals are actually giving it a much more important thing, and computational linguistics is going to be a very key element which is happening. So such areas of research we will be able to find out it in application as such. But I think to a larger audience, and especially for faculty members, perhaps the easy way of looking at application of digital into humanities is by looking at this three-tier model, which we call as the efficiency, effectiveness, transformation model. And you have a very interesting paper, which is a very latest issue of Frontiers in Computer Science, the 2024, I think, June issue. It's a special issue which have a very series of very interesting articles which tells you about how AI is getting applied into the digital or humanities discipline per se. So the first and the simplest is the efficiency improvement. And all of us must have used it in some way or other, perhaps to correct the assignments in a faster way, perhaps to create question papers, perhaps to make the teaching and learning process more effective. So efficiency is primarily the accelerating the existing process. So we visualize and we actually look at the linkages as such. So digital archiving of culture, history, neurolinguistic programming, natural linguistic text image processing, machine translation, knowledge graphs, GIS, AI tools, all these. And today we also speak quite a bit about prompt engineering, where we use the language to tame the AI. All of them are formed the part of the efficiency. Here, what we are doing is our current work. How do we accelerate? How do we use that? But that's not where we need to stop. We need to go to the next step where we see that can I actually increase the effectiveness? Can I actually use something where I could not have used in the past tools? Can I increase the pedagogy? Can there be a new pedagogy where some of the bane of industrial world or massification, which we spoke about earlier, can actually be addressed on that? That's basically where immersive learning, precision learning, etc., comes in picture. Can I actually create newer models and newer literature like corpus linguistics sort of models can actually be adopted? And also, how do I develop humanities talent for the digital world person? The third layer, which is basically where humanity is also getting applied to is primarily where we speak about the transformation. There is a fundamental rethinking on the social, economic, and philosophical transformation which is happening in the digital world. There's a social transformation, there is an economic transformation, and a philosophical transformation. And all the three are actually the areas where we need to do more research. We need to come out with models. We need to come out with concepts which will be useful for the society to advance. So let me quickly spend a little bit of time, maybe 10 minutes before I close, on each of these, and then we will take up the questions per se. So if you look at the digital tools for humanities, so the first transformation of culture. So I'll just give you a very simple, because you must have heard several lectures about digital humanities. Let me just give you a small demonstration of how we can use digital tools to archive and come out with something interesting in technology space. So I hope you could see this is a digital archiving project which Digital University is doing for helping the normal artists and storing the culture. But I don't want to go into all of them. I'll just show you one as how AI is getting applied. So this is primarily, this what you see in front is what we call as a knowledge graph. A knowledge graph is a tool which is used in artificial intelligence primarily to connect multiple aspects as such. So the entire cultural art forms of Kerala is actually being captured in this knowledge graph. So, for example, if I wanted to see what are the cultural art forms in Kerala where the music is there, I just need to click on music and then move, and I will see the multiple type of traditional things which is actually being connected with that. Now, if I click on that particular one, it also says that this particular thing, but Chimmanna Kali or whatever be, it actually has not only music, connected with drama, connected with forest, connected with grasslands, connected with songs. And you can also have a small video and about that and details about that. So anybody who is doing studies in culture, they not only to see the art forms, but they will also be able to go deeper into this and start understanding the connection between this and which part of the state, what type of culture forms are there, what time it is there, and it can actually link with which conventionally is not being considered as the group per se, and it provides people to move across the whole thing. At the same time, it also preserves the cultural art forms in a very interactive manner per se. So this is a simple application of a digital humanities where the art forms are actually being preserved, stored, and used in a manner where people will be able to take it to the next field per se. So that's just an example. I was sharing that, but then uh, if somebody wants to know, you can actually look at this site. It gives you much more detail. It actually gives you a lot of varieties on that. Now, this is not only in culture. This could actually be used in many different domains. At Digital University, we are trying to do application of the similar thing in the same process of AI, which I use in culture. I'm using it in judiciary. So you will be able to create the ontologies which forms the fundamental constructs of any legal framework per se. Just like these forms of fundamental constructs of an art form, we will be using the other one. So such models can actually be developed, and you can see the linkages in a very interesting manner per se. There are other aspects: digital archaeology, digital history, digital learning innovations, digital paleography. In fact, one of the work which we are doing today is that we have in India a large number of archives written in maybe in leaves and things like that. We have mines and mines of information which is available. But our biggest challenge is that we have not digitized that. Even if we have digitized that, we don't have people who know, we don't have enough people who know the meaning of that. So you primarily have a something which is written about, let's say, ancient science, which is written in a leaf. We have technologies today to document it. But even if I document it, I don't understand what it is because that language of that time is not known to me. Or even if there are few experts who knows about it. And if if you wanted to make unearth the entire thing, you really require several years and tons of people. AI helps there. In fact, we are doing a project where we are actually taking the archives, taking the expert, and trying to use an AI model which try to ensure that the expertise is captured so that AI can actually translate this in a very, very fast fashion. So such things which ensures not only collection of it, but it also tries to unearth the history, unearth the wisdom, the Indian knowledge systems and things like that. It's not necessarily in India, it's across the world. We will be able to do that. And there are many projects which is being happening in the world. One example is there are in Harvard University, you can see that multiple type of digital humanities projects which are happening. And all these things, the focus obviously is how to use digital and AI tools to accelerate the existing studies. That is a focus. So that's the primary purpose of digital humanity. First level. The second level, which is primarily where you are using it for enhancing the effectiveness. There, we try to see how educational research in humanities discipline is actually going to be different from the other one. And where we speak about computational humanities, all of you know that we are trying to use the analysis of literary text. That's basically the research helps you. And digital technology in learning and teaching and learning, I'll come to that in a little more detail. And today we also speak about what we call as a generative literature. Electronic literature, which was primarily, and many of you may be familiar with this McInerney's the work on electronic literature and the latest criticisms on that, on how digital literary criticisms, digital literacy is actually going to make a big difference per se. So I'm sure that some of those areas are familiar with, especially people from the linguistics and language background per se. So if you look at uh, uh, the the key aspect of FTness is that something which conventional technologies cannot do, can I actually do it with technology? So three elements we speak about it. Can I actually enhance my reach to the students? Possible, because digital actually ensures that it is available for people to digitize content is very easily available. See, for example, today I'm sure that all of you are sitting from different parts of the world, but we all come together in this platform to discuss. So the reach has actually gone. Think about this technology is not there. We may not have all these people coming together at a single platform. But the second important thing, which a conventional classroom cannot do, is what we call as richness and relationship, where we can actually use metaverse and immersive models to do learning. As I said at the start, saying that in the Gurukula, teacher knows each individual's learning path. When you come to a class of 300, we cannot do that, or 30 also we cannot do that. But can use AI to take the response of the students, understand the path, and create curriculums, create your learning content, create your classrooms ideal to that. And that's what we call as a precision education. And that's basically where relationships becomes very close to the student. The guru and the shishya had a very strong relationship in the ancient ages. Same way, in the new world of education, if you use AI properly, that relationship is quite possible, and you can even predict the performance per se. And and that is exactly what is the difference which is shown in this picture, that from a Gurukula, it was mass education. We move from mass education, now we need to move to mass customization. From a quality which was given there, we move to access. Now with the newer model, we will be giving equity, access, and quality at scale. That's the implication of digital in the technologies in the education space person. Now, when it comes to literature, sorry, yeah, we could actually use generative literature, which again, since for the want of time, I'm not going to the detail of it, but you know that what is generative literature, where production of continuously changing literary text by means of a specific dictionary and some set of rules and use of algorithms. So people are writing poems with ChatGPT, etc. It's a part of the generative literature. Again, the research has to be done how this has to become effective per se. But this implication of this is very high. For example, I was doing a similar session for journalists some time back, and that's the time when the Manipur debate happened in Parliament. Now, it's very easy today to write an editorial. Just give 4 or 5 points, and then give my style or persona, and you will get the entire news report coming out as a part of it. So such simple changes are happening, and I'm sure that many of us are using this per se. But the third level, which is what we need to be interesting, and these are what we call as the unfinished agenda, is the transformative part of the technology. And this transformative part of technology, a very interesting video is there, which I suggest all of you should see, called Humans Need Not Apply, which is a 15 minutes video, which actually gives you how technology is actually transforming the way the vocations are happening in the world. And more importantly, this also created some major changes in the social factors per se. And let's understand what are those social factors which is happening. The first and the foremost important thing is that the new world is about democratization of technology. Most of us are using Zoom, and many of us are using Zoom without any cost. So the technology has actually democratized. In fact, many of you are colleges, if you ask some of the students in the technology domain, they may be developing AI solutions. You may be even wondering how come a person with very limited resources is actually developing an AI solution, because the technology has actually democratized. And this democratization has come because of new models of social structures. And we used to say that when large number of people adopt a particular technology, that is basically where a technology become democratized. And how this technology democratization happened? That has happened because it is moved from a model of single individual development to a collective development. Most of the new aspects are come in a collective model per se. So rather than production happening at concentrated factories, crowd is actually focusing it. So from a standard to a personalized, with a variety of standards, from a high upfront cost, you are actually now addressing that cost of development by making sure that you allow technologies to large number of people. So ChatGPT, some of you, I'm giving the example of ChatGPT because most of us use that as an AI tool. ChatGPT over the time period, you must have seen that it has actually improved substantially, right? How it improved? Because people who use us actually make it refine more. So this reinforcing model, where I contribute to ensure that a large number of people uses it, is actually a model which was not there in the past. We never used to share. We always keep it proprietary. From a proprietary to a sharing, it has actually happened. So this movement, which we call as the open source movement, has actually become a different social trait per se. So I'll just skip some of this because of the time. And this has led to what we spoke earlier, three different changes in the culture. The access economy, where people make things access to others, community-based economy, and what we call as a platform-based economy, which is happening. So this shift is actually a phenomenally important or a fundamental shift which is happening around us as such. But that is the positive aspect of it. But having said that positive aspect, there is also equally challenging negative aspect. Why do somebody study humanity disciplines? The reason why humanities disciplines is always complementing the technology discipline is because it's through the humanities disciplines people actually make responsible decisions. People are actually create ethical and moral decisions. To understand the difference or challenges in this new transition, let's look at what are the perils of the industrial world. We all know sustainability is a question, exploitation of resources which has happened, economic imbalance has happened, and there's a disastrous effect of mass production per se, even though there are a lot of benefits. Same way, in the AI also, the question of sustainability, data pollution, which all of us are familiar with. You, if you have a political bias, little bit, slight political bias, if I am actually in an AI world, the AI will take you substantially to the space which actually drives that. So in other words, the world becomes more and more polarized. It actually drives you to polarized world per se. It creates filter bubbles and destruction, and also issues of data privacy and ethics. Some of the earlier sessions have discussed that, so I'll not go into the detail of that. So core disciplines of humanities have to address all these aspects: digital social behavior, digital economy, digital literature, digital arts, etc., and leads to what we call as the humanities in the AI world person. So humanities in the AI world, with this I will stop. The study of humanities to curate a responsible digital world. Each of the domains you can see, philosophy and anthropology. How do philosophical foundations have to be looked at to drive ethical foundation for moral decision making in the AI world? Important question. We need to ask why some of the decisions AI taking are not really ethical, and how do we do that? History and anthropology and culture studies, empathy in artificial in the decision making. Many times we don't have empathy happening in that. Even language of AI design. Algorithmic bias. No, a very simple example is that think about AI tools which you use, Alexa, Siri, right? Now, have you ever thought that what is the gender of this? They are all females. Why is it so? Why should you think that whenever you think about a secretarial assistant, AI assistant, it should be a female name? So there is an inherent gender bias which has been built in the AI designs. It is a linguistic professionals, literature professionals who may have to correct that. They may have to actually ensure that the newer prompting, the newer designs have to be more sustainable per se. And then in the context of economics also, it's again a very big topic of its own. I'll not go into that. So in other words, each of these have got more questions and many unfinished agendas per se. So in summary, there is a transition needed from digital humanities, where digital applied to humanities, to humanities applied to digital. The new challenge for humanities professionals is that in addition to technical, they should also look at functional aspects per se. And how do you translate into teaching and research? You adopt and adaptation of tools, but more importantly, which I'm sure already happening. More importantly, there is a need for fundamental rethinking, because if humanities have to become relevant in the robo-next worlds, no, because humans are being replaced by robots, you really require this has to be relevant on that. That happens only when you go back and know that electric bulb did not happen from continuous improvement of candles. It happened to a completely different thing. And that thinking is what we need for the humanities in the AI first world. Thank you very much. And I think I've taken most of my time, but quickly we can have some questions if you have. Thank you.
So that was an impactful presentation on the diverse nuances of modern day education and the effective implementation of suggested practices which enable us to have a holistic education in the academic world. Sir, we have two questions. May I start with the first question, sir?
Please.
As AI continues to permeate various aspects of life, including the creation of artwork, how can we ensure the preservation of human creativity?
Yeah, a good question, because this is actually a big challenge today, that you don't know whether something has been created by human beings or whether it is created by the machines per se. So it's in this context we need to start looking at how do we actually ensure that the human creativity goes to a level where the AI tools cannot create. It's because every vocation, every level, you can see there are different areas where automation replaces you. But there are areas where automation don't replaces you. So think about a movie. Today, you can actually create a movie using AI, but you cannot make the entire movie using an AI which is appealing to you, because there are areas where high level of emotions are involved, high level of designs are involved, etc., where human beings are to be there. So what happened is that when we didn't have this tool, we were actually using human skills for doing that. That has to be replaced. To make a comparison, before calculators came, all of us used to use our fingers to calculate. When calculators came, we stopped doing that. Calculators replace that. But that does not mean that very complex calculations you can do in a calculator. There again, human brain has to be applied. Same is the case in the creative solutions also. You may be able to replace some of the lower end creative work, but higher end, very innate, very intensive creative work, AI will not be able to replace, at least for the time being person. So we need to actually scale ourselves up in that region as such.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there's another one question from Mr. Stephen. Is AI a threat to originality, and to what extent?
Uh, AI is not a threat to originality because AI actually developed on the originality. Even though there are few cases where AI created very original models. In fact, one of the interesting work which happened, which has actually published in a recent tech journal, is that uh, one of the AI models have actually developed a shock absorber for ensuring that the vehicles and others can actually do it. And the shape of the shock absorber or the profile of the shock absorber, no human being in the world have ever thought about it. So that is an original one. But these are very, very exceptions. Most often than not, what AI does is AI actually develop on what your original work is. Still, we are still far away from what we call as the generative AI. We are still at a what we call as a narrow AI. When generative AI comes, yes, this is possible. But that also ensure that human beings evolve, right? Uh, we know that people who were doing calculators or handwriting, hand calculations, and people who are working in the computer world, their way of calculating and their way of solving problems is much, much higher. That's a way of evolution. So when AI catch up, my point is that people will catch up even further as such. But then it is important for us to ensure that we know what technology can do. That's why we say that AI never replaces a human being, but a person who knows AI will replace a person who do not know AI. So that is where we need to actually start it. We ensure that we master it rather than make it master us.
Thank
So
you,
I think
sir.
there's one more question
Uh,
on the chat box on potential implications of challenges in terms of ethical and social issues of using AI, datafication of healthcare, etc. See, datafication of healthcare. I'll just take an example of that. See, using of AI in healthcare is actually very, very useful because in a country like India or in Africa, where the number of people or doctors versus the number of doctors which is needed is much, much small, the technology can actually do a lot of non-value adding element of doctors. A simple example is, let's say, cancer detection. Today, what happened is that a doctor actually sees thousands of slides. Maybe one of them may be a benign slide or malign side. Others are all benign side. But his time is actually getting spent on looking at each of these. You can actually use an AI tool to go through this data. And it will actually tell that, okay, this is a potential case. This is a sure not case. This may be a doubtful case. In other words, you will be able to make the doctor's time much more useful person. But the point which the participant has said that, is it not I am exposing my personal data? The answer is no. You can always anonymize it. So from a health data point of view, that is possible. But bigger challenge is not that. Bigger challenge is that because when we use this technology a lot, technology has a bias. The technology bias is that technology always, it's a very nice guy. He always give you only what you want to give here. So you think about your WhatsApp groups. Most of the WhatsApp groups in which you are, which you have not exited, is places where people discuss only things which you want to hear, right? A difference of opinion, after some time you will get out. So this is what we call as a filter bubble. And AI creates more and more filter bubbles. As humanities professionals, you people know that that is the key threat to a society. If if people in a society hear only one type of a voice, and they believe in that and they reinforce that, society will never advance. Society need dissidences. Society want differences. That is a bigger ethical threat in this context per se. And then there is also today's AI also do some hallucinations. They actually make up things like that. No, it makes stories by its own. And that is what generally we call as hallucination in the context of AI. That also creates sometimes a fake literature. The fake literature is fine, but what happens is that next layer of AI will develop on this fake literature and assume that that is a true literature. So this reinforcement of fake can actually create some destructive things in the society per se. So those are the areas which one have to be careful about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for detailing the answers and enlightening the participants on their queries. Yeah. Due to time constraints, we'll not be able to answer all the questions. However, you can communicate the same in the feedback form circulated today, and this will be sent to the resource person. Thank you, participants, for your understanding. Technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with the liberal arts and the humanities yields us to the results that make our hearts sing. On that note, I call upon Dr. Ravi Kumar N, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to deliver the word of thanks.
Good evening to all. It is both my privilege and honor to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of our organizing committee of this International Faculty Development Program. First and foremost, we would like to extend our deepest gratitude to Professor Saji Gopinath, Vice Chancellor, Kerala University of Digital Science, Innovation and Technology, for delivering an insightful, thought-provoking session on humanities in the AI First World. Your scholarship across diverse domains ranging from digital humanities, AI evolution, revolution, transformation, and humanities for the digital world has truly enriched this session, inspiring to us reflect the deeply evolving relationship between technology and humanities. Thank you, sir. Sir, you are not only for sharing your expertise, but also for enlightening us wish, with ideas that will no doubt influence on academic pursuing moving forward. We are immensely grateful for this time, your dedication to this session, and the significant intellectual contribution you have made this international program success. Thank you, sir. I would I would also like to this opportunity to express our sincere appreciation to management of our institution for their unwavering support and encouragement in organizing such a meaningful academic initiatives. A special note of thanks to our head of the department, English, for the Joshi Matthew, whose leadership and guidance has been instrumental in ensuring the smooth coordination and successful completion of today's session. We gratefully value your dedication and commitment to this program. Thank you very much, Father. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our coordinators for their meticulous planning and faculty members of our department for their unwavering support throughout the course of this event. I would also like to recognize the contribution to esteemed colleague Dr. Vidyavati, Mary Reimer, Dr. Nishita, and Brighton Eros for their hard working behind the scenes. Finally, I extend my sincere gratitude to all the participants of this active engagement throughout the program. Your involvement and invaluable, and we look forward to continuing this intellectually enriching journey with your upcoming session. Once again, thank you all for your presence and contributions. I wish you everyone a pleasant day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Kumar, for your kind words of acknowledgement. Moving on to the photo session, I now request everyone to turn on their camera for a group photo and make this session a memorable one. Thank you once again, Professor Saji Gopinath, for this was a greatly enriching session. I do hope to hear from you in the future as well. Thank you, sir. Before we sign off, here are few general instructions. We kindly request all the participants to join 10 minutes before the scheduled time to ensure smooth functioning of the sessions. Kindly rename your device with your name along with your affiliation, which will help us to track your attendance. E-certificates will be issued only to the registered participants who have paid the registration fee, attended all the sessions, and filled the daily feedback form. It is essential to fill the feedback forms, which will be provided at the end of the session. Please do not share the Zoom link with anyone. A short note on tomorrow's session. Professor Sangeeta Menon, Dean, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bengaluru, who's a versatile writer and speaker, will be the resource person of the day. This session is on being a humanistic teacher to navigate the future AI spaces. The session will commence at 3:30 p.m. Kindly log in 10 minutes prior to that. The session has now ended. Participants, the feedback link is now available in the chat box. Kindly do the needful. A kind announcement on the upcoming national and international conferences. We kindly request that you mark your calendars to ensure your participation in these significant events as we all aspire to widen our knowledge horizon. Thank you all for joining this fruitful session. Have a peaceful evening ahead.
Like a golden disc, sun in horizon east, lights up a life divine, fills knowledge in our minds. Laurels and the book make us sublime. With the mighty Lord, we soar high on the bedrock of faith. Integrity of force, human dignity true, excellence we strive. Christu Jayanti, life and prosperity. Christu Jayanti, life and prosperity. Rays of joy and peace sprawl our hearts and minds. On we march our goals as a beacon for the world, with a passion for our growth.